I think you guys know what it means when I break out the big red bow. I deem it finished. We'll look at some all-up weights. I have to take this off. Believe it or not, that weighs almost 30 grams. All-up weight, around 17, 16 grams. Three 3.125 pounds. $60.4 ounces. That falls well under the 2,000 that I'm told is proper for this. And that 2,000 comes straight from the instructions. Flying weight 1,000 to 2,000 grams. I'm almost 300 grams underneath that, even with the heavy cameras on the front, etc., and all the extra parts I put on it. So I feel really good about that. The pan servo I'm using actually goes 540 degrees. And so what I did is I limited the end points on the pan channel so that even if I move it all the way to one side, it only goes from forward to straight back. It was going 90 degrees further than that on both sides, and it comes back to center really well, and has some pretty fine adjustment on the pan. Really does do pretty well, I think. I don't think I need that fine of an adjustment. Now, I do worry about what the plane's going to do when it's in that angle. I also worry about what the plane's going to do when it's like that, with that angle down. I assume that would be pushing the nose down. We'll have to see what happens with that. But everything's pretty good. Got a lot more up than I need, and I really would like more down. I may change that a little bit, but for starters, it's pretty good. I was going to maiden it without the cameras on the front of it, but seeing with the cameras, it's under the all-up weight. I may just go with the cameras from the start. I haven't made that decision quite yet. I do think I may put a prop stopper on the back, just to try to keep that folding prop from getting in the V-tails. It's a simple thing to print and install, but I'm still going to call it ready at this point. I do not know when I'm going to maiden it. 2 days from now, Wednesday, I have to go to my eye doctor for the yearly checkup, and I really do think he's going to want to do the cataract surgery. I have just been really blind the last 6 months, even in daylight. At night, it's almost impossible for me to see to drive. Last year, I took my FPV goggles, the Carl Zeiss $800 FPV goggles, and my cheap Hobby King Cyclops. Showed them to him and said, "Gee, Doc, I'm spending all this money, but I can't use them because I can't see. Can't put my glasses inside here. Can on the Cyclops." He basically just smiled at me. I mean, come on, guys. These are the original high-definition OLED. Aren't those sexy? Wouldn't you want to be at the drone race wearing them? I guess nobody really would, but come on. The ophthalmologist was just tickled that they were Carl Zeiss. He thought that was neater than snuff, as we say around here. You don't think I want to use these? Didn't think the cataracts were bad enough to fix, so I don't know what I'm going to do this time to try to get him to fix them, because it's just getting to be a problem. He won't give me contacts because diabetes. He doesn't want me to ulcerate my eye. I don't really want to change eye doctors. I think he's being quite careful with me. We'll find out in 48 hours or so what the answer is to that. That decision will not keep me from maidening this airplane. If he does decide to do my cataract surgery, I'm pretty sure, based on Pam's cataract surgery, that I won't be operated on before February or March of 2022. I'll have to deal with it until then. And I'm certainly not going to wait until that time to maiden this or any other airplane. Guess I should tell you a little bit about the build. This is where my mini Talon build started. This is the Ardu plane documentation, and this was their long-range FPV airplane. I don't remember how long ago I saw this. Could be 5 years or more. Probably basically when it was first put up. I just like the looks of the mini Talon, the VTEL. So I printed out part of this. Might not be. I'll look at some other things in a second here. But this shows a little different. This isn't the all up weight. And they're talking about different batteries here. So I got the all up weight off the plans themselves. Can't remember if I printed this right here. I think this is where I printed out and have been working from this information for several years, actually. I did go with some of this stuff. I didn't do the bushings, probably should have. I do notice that airflow isn't real great on that. I did use the blind nuts, claw nuts, whatever you want to call them. Not particularly because of this build, but this build may have put that in the back of my mind. Wow, that's a pretty good idea. I should have thought of that, or should have actually paid attention to this and put some blue painter's tape on those to keep the glue out of them, but that's not the way I did it, but I didn't have a problem. I made a plywood bottom just out of crafter's plywood myself for the bottom of the equipment tray to mount the flight controller in, but I did not do this 3D printed one. Looks pretty good though. I did do this optional front skid. Don't know for sure that I got it from this site, but I did put one on it. They talk in here about 3D printed servo linkage. I didn't do any 3D printing. I used metal
just threaded rod. The whole thing's threaded, so I can do whatever I want to. And I did go with uh, tie rod, control rod ends. This isn't a car engine, I know. Uh, I did go with the control ends with the bushing in them. This is what I noticed today as I was going to set up this video, and it's printing now. I'll add that. I don't think this really causes the all-up weight to change much. Now they're showing 60 millimeter CG on this, but I think that's been changed to 50. Uh, I'll check that out a little more.
The plans that come with it do say, oops, 50. May have seen other place that's 55. I'm not going to search that a whole lot deeper. I'm probably going to be off 2 to 3 millimeters no matter what I try to do. Well, that's 50 millimeters. I like it. I used this to set up the Bixlers. I forgot I had it. Could be a little heavier in the nose, perhaps, is the only thing I could say about it. But that battery's pretty darn close to me. Oops, that one wing slid back a little. So that'll make it look tail heavy. I think when I'm going to go in and make a mark on the inside of the fuselage, oops, at the back of the battery, I think I'm going to make it an eighth of an inch, no more than a quarter of an inch further forward than it is now. Maybe I'll move the battery and then make the mark. But I think that's pretty good. Like I say, I did this with the Bixlers. The Bixler flew good. Didn't really do it on the Nano Skyhunter. It was such a small plane.
Oh, boy, that's amazing. Hey, I did put the ESC sort of in this area. I put the GPS up front here where they put their video transmitter. I did sort of put my Dragon Link right in this area. I, I wasn't following this exactly. This was just, I did use the parts thing up here. I'll verify that again in a second. This parts list, I used it, but I really didn't follow this build. But again, I followed the gist of the build with the skids, etc., etc., etc. That looks a lot like mine, except for with my heavy gimbal on the front, my battery is more to the rear than this shows, and I do have some problems with that. I just realized a second ago that I will have to fix up. I did go with this. I do AETR, ailerons, elevator, throttle, rudder, and of course, in a VTEL, that is not the way it works. I did ailerons, one VTEL, then the throttle on 3, and then the right VTEL on 4. You can do whatever you want in Ardu. It's so easy. And real quickly, I got that from Ardu. Plane. First time setup. Configuration. Choosing servo outputs. Function. And setup of specific aircraft types. And under that, VTEL planes. Servo 1, 2, 3, and 4. AETR, aileron. Call this elevator, throttle. Call this rudder. This is the current information for the current versions. This is a value set in servo function in that big parameter list. It's really, really simple. In the main parameters list in our do plane, servo 2 function 79. If you look down through here, you'll see that says VTEL left right there. 80 VTEL right. We'll find that on servo 4 function. 80. That's all there is to setting this stuff up. So this is what you can set any servo channel up to do. And you can put any channel anywhere. I mean, it's just a piece of cake. Well, for me, you see, all this stuff I've worked with almost since version 1, so it's just been a little bite of the apple to learn each time instead of learning it all at one time. Boy. Okay, back to the case in point. This just happens to be that same piece that I hope I don't mispronounce this, but I think it's Mr. Red Dog suggested for me. I'm not sure he got it from this particular page, but this page referenced the same page he referenced. So, and this seems to be a 433 system. I'm using a 915 because I really didn't need the distance and the penetration as much as smaller antennas. 6.5 dozen of the other. And then the rest of this, of course, this has to have a external, well, they're using a Maytag 405 wing in this. Wow, cool. The straight up Ardu hardware does not have built-in OSD, which I loved when I found the Maytag controllers 6 months or so ago. I used a different airspeed. I just poked it out the front. I'm concerned with the airflow not being great in this position, but that's again 6.5 dozen the other because I put the GPS up front and you can run the airspeed sensor through the GPS bus. It just let me use a little less wire. When I put the GPS in like this position, it was just less wire to put the PDOT tube out the front. So that's the way I did it. Compass. Ardu has always used a compass on the airplane. I know iNav doesn't. It isn't required because of the speed that the GPS is changing readings. You can calculate a pretty good air compass direction, but also with a compass, they say auto takeoffs are more stable, etc. And I don't know if you saw a Painless 360 video recently. He's using compasses on some little small quads because, you know, if it's there in the GPS, hook it up. It can't hurt. It can help, but it can't hurt if it's there and properly calibrated and set up. And it's so simple to do that. It's not usually a good idea to have flight camera mounted on a stabilized mount since the operator will lose the feedback of the plane's attitude while flying. Okay, but he's got it on a pan and tilt here and then this big 3D printed part that goes on top of this. I think my setup may be a little less, although I do have that 540-degree servo, which is full-side servo that weighs 70 grams itself. But that is one of the reasons I tolerated that 70 grams in that servo. It's beefy. The shaft coming out of it's beefy where the camera tightens down on it more so than a micro servo, which I couldn't even find a 360 in a micro. I'd have to go with a belt driven, which I know there's a really good belt driven. Oh yeah, he's got his flight camera right here, I suppose. So he's using 2 cameras, or this one is not for flight. I'm not sure. But I think rather than this printed plastic, what I did is going to be somewhat similar, even with the big old, yeah, there's his flight camera in this picture. I don't see why you would tilt this around and pan it without being able to see what you're doing. That's pretty strange. I guess you could point it straight back to look at what the prop's doing. I think this is a pretty good setup, although this shows the Dragon Link antenna up front instead of in the back. You know, and this is a different way. And ooh, that camera sticks way out the front there. Not bad. And here's your 3D printed parts. And if we click on the website they're talking about here, this is exactly the site that Mr. Red Dog, I hope that's the proper pronunciation. I'd be so embarrassed if I botched things like that. This is where I was sent by a very nice person I was grateful for to do my antenna, and I'm back at this site for the prop stoppers. And this is a pretty good place. I had found this on my own before too, but this is the major page I had used. Videos of his thing, his build, and then of course when you click next it goes over to other parts of Ardu. So this is, wow, I even have that particular airplane stand. I didn't buy it because of this picture, or I had forgotten about this picture. I bought it because it's cheap and serves my purpose. I've looked at a big one that stands up 3 feet, but I think that would blow over in the wind. But anyway, this is what caused me, and I would like to build a quad plane in this fashion out of a mini Talon. Perhaps this mini Talon in the future. I don't know, but I would like to do one of these. Ardu sets up for that very easily. Don't think iNav does quad plane yet. Let me look real quick and see if this is exactly the piece of paper I have printed out. Yes, this is exactly the parts list I used. I just scraped through it like this, copied it and dropped it in Word, and have had that printed out for probably more than a year. It was a long time before I could even find a mini Talon. So that's where my build came from, and this is the parts list I used. I think I used a 5800 4S battery from Get FPV. Let me look at that real quick, boy. No, actually I did use a 4S 5200 milliamp hour Lumineer from Get FPV. It is actually a 35C discharge, which is way more than this needs. Good, I can throw the power to full and not worry about any battery damage. All I have to worry about is running it too low. And it has a burst of 70 C. Boy. So a little bit more on than the 10 C this. And I do have a problem with that battery I'm going to show here in another second that I just figured out. I went with the 915 actually megahertz Dragon Link system to satisfy my telemetry issues. By the way, I think I've said this before, I will say it again. Ardu is extremely into telemetry. When you go into the docs on Ardu, they frequently will tell you, do this in this setup, fly it, land, look at your telemetry, airspeed. There we go. If you go down through this, you're finally going to get down to different ways you can do the airspeed. Here's a manual calibration. It says to determine the right airspeed ratio manually, you should do a test flight in fly-by-wire A mode with the following procedure. Take off, get a safe altitude, 100 meters or so. Start a steady turn by holding the aileron stick to one side. Let your aircraft do 2 or 3 turns, land, look at your telemetry logs. There is case after case after case after case in Ardu where they're going to tell you exactly this type of information. They're going to tell you what to do and then what to do with the logs when you land. So telemetry is integral to Ardu. Don't try to get away from it. That's probably because most Ardu flight controllers have no OSD data. But I found the Maytech controllers that will load Ardu and they have OSD built in. That's why I went with them, even after I bought 2 Mind Robotics setups that I'll show you in the future that cost 10 times as much as the Maytech controllers, but have no OSD data. OSD's always been, I guess, because Ardu relied so much on telemetry radios, they just forgot about the OSD. I don't know. Anyway, that's where I started my mini Talon project, from this page right here, and I'll leave a link to this in the description on this video. My prop stopper, you may hear it printing in the background right now. And when I hooked up my battery to show what I had done with the pan servo, I found another problem. Both of these problems will be easily fixed tonight. They will add a little bit of haul-up weight. I don't think it'll be that much. But I will go ahead and get that printed out and see what I can do, and then we'll take a look here at my battery problem.
And this is my battery problem. This battery is going to have to be back, not in this area up here, but it's going to have to be back in here and maybe slid underneath in a little bit. And what the problem is it's really hard to connect the battery lead well for any position I would put it in. And that's because these batteries I got from Get FPV, which I love their stuff, the lead here is so short on it. It's only 3 inches. So I'm going to have to, I think my easiest solution is I have some little extensions that came with some of these power switches I have, I think. Let me look at them. Yeah, I bought some of these little cheap power switches. This one's a little more expensive and a little better. This one takes very little amperage. I put one on the flame wheel one time and just punched the 4 motors up sitting on the bench without any props on it, and this immediately melted. So this one doesn't take much current. This one takes a little more current. And I just plug them into the flight controller, set the battery on the bench, and then I can turn it on and off with a switch. It's just easier than plugging it in and out and jerking on things. But this one came with some extra little leads, not little actually, like this. And I guess that's what I'm going to do, is put them in there and have this inside there to hook it up real easily no matter where it is. That's not an elegant solution, but I think it is going to be my solution. Again, I'm ready to get it in the air. Or I may make up a littler, smaller pigtail, because this one weighs 18 grams. I'm really not thrilled about adding 18 grams. But the short lead on the battery does seem to cause a problem. Yeah, I guess that's not going to be as big a problem as I thought. I don't have Velcro on the battery yet. But right about where it's positioned right now is got my CG where I need it. So that short lead is going to be good without putting that other 18 grams in it. Although my battery strap does not slide underneath the Velcro in the bottom, so it's not going to be secured in with a battery strap, it looks like, just with the Velcro on the bottom. So there won't be any aerobatics. Shouldn't be any aerobatics, but I know me. I'm liable to do them anyway, so always something, isn't it? Well, it's held in there pretty good with the Velcro. It rocks around. I don't like that. I can't move the battery strap, so it's not going to have a battery strap on it. That's one thing I did not do very well. I really do hate it. It rocks back and forth so much, but it really is. Ugh, I use that 15-pound outdoor Velcro, and I might not have it exactly centered, but I'll work on that. But that is the front and rear position that will give me a pretty good CG. I switched the Velcro from the bottom of the battery to the side so that these leads are on top and should be just easier to plug in, I hope. But they're long enough now. I am just really disappointed that I don't have a battery strap on it, and it really does rock back and forth a lot. Not sure what I'm going to do about that. I think that could be a problem with the plane rocking back and forth, but I'll just have to think about that one. Maybe some light foam on each side to hold it. That just really, the battery strap really does disappoint me. Oops. 2 different versions of prop stoppers did finish printing out just now. I'll go ahead and put them on the prop and see if they do what I need done or not. The prop stopper worked pretty good. I've got it on right there, and that's as far forward as the props can come anymore. They won't go any further forward, so they can't get in the foam here. And they still do fold, but they only fold straight back now. They don't fold in such a way that the tips can touch and break things. So that's what I need, and that will work. So I'm going to stop this video the same way I started it, with a big red bow on top of the mini Talon. Now I do have one last thing I will do to this. I probably will try to find some foam rubber to put around that battery that shouldn't add much weight, that might hold it a little more steady. That's the only thing. And if I don't get that done before I maiden it, so be it. This project was not my project. This project was the results of a lot of you guys helping me out. For that, I will forever be grateful, and I thank you.